Talk about all of this now and welcome in Georgia Congressman Jody Hice. Congressman, great to see you. I feel like we're getting to know each other pretty well. Thank you for being so available to us to kind of talk us through what's going on. Of course, we booked you to talk about the situation in Georgia. So let's start there. Georgia currently recounting its nearly 5 million votes by hand. President Trump now saying, though, the recount is a waste of time because they will not let poll watchers into these counting rooms. Is it a waste of time?
Well, it's certainly not what it could have been or what it should have been. I think it's could prove to be beneficial in that it will enable us to compare the votes that came out of the Dominion machines versus the votes that are coming out of a hand count. It will enable us to compare those two numbers. And of course, if there's a large difference, then we have serious problems with the Dominion machine. And of course, that opens up a whole lot of other issues. This is improper, however. We are tremendously handicapped by our Secretary of State. As you mentioned, only the poll watchers, the count watchers in this case, only one count watcher per every 10 tables of people who are counting. And even then, the individual is not able to sit down with the counters at the table, not allowed to ask questions, just simply able to walk from one table to the next. How do you have an audit with that? We're also not allowed to have signature comparisons the way we ought to be able to get down and really confirm the authenticity and the verification of the voters. So very much this is handicapped, but at least we will be able, hopefully, to compare the Dominion count versus the hand count.
And that's what a lot of people are focused on, specifically the Dominion voting machines. And if this is really the kind of linchpin in this whole thing, a lot of people focused on that as being what could turn this around for President Trump. Congressman, you have the nearly 73 million people who voted for President Trump, and you saw that emotion on display yesterday in Washington, D.C. Of course, we've seen what Antifa and Black Lives Matter do. They continue with their violence. But so you have all that emotion on one hand, and then you have guys like the Arkansas governor, Asa Hutchinson, and also the Ohio governor, Mike DeWine, saying that, they expect Vice President Biden to be President Biden in a matter of time and that President Trump should just go ahead and give in. What do you say to those guys?
I say that's utter foolishness. It's irresponsible. This race has not been decided. The irregularities are abundant, and they need to be checked into. The issues with the Dominion voting machines have potentially been abundant as well, and fraud across the board. The allegations, as we all know, are everywhere. It needs to be checked into. Look, no one can tell me. These questions need to be looked at very honestly. We were told, the House of Representatives, the Republicans were going to lose 25 seats.
Yeah.
Instead, we flipped 11 seats. Not a single Republican lost in the entire nation. We kept the Senate, and President Trump received 9 million more votes this time than he did 4 years ago. And we're supposed to believe that somehow he lost, Georgia. There's a rat in the room, and we need to get to the bottom of it. It's totally irresponsible at this point to be saying he lost. I do not believe he did lose. I believe actually, if we have a fair count of legal votes, we would discover that President Trump actually won by a landslide, in my opinion.
Well, the question is, will we ever get that information out there? Will it ever be found? And the recount is one way to figure this stuff out, but other places it seems like that investigation is winding down. And again, with the media, their prevailing narrative is that this is over, it's time to move on. But we're not in normal times, are we, Congressman? And it's maybe time to realize that it's, even if we don't have the tens of thousands of dead people voting to overturn this stuff, maybe enough people are going to rise up and say we're sick of any dead people voting and enough is enough.
Yeah, what kind of percentage do we want in terms of an accurate count? Is 90% enough, or maybe 99%? We're after 100% accuracy.
Right.
What do we have in this race? We don't have any idea. We do know the allegations of irregularities and anomalies are widespread. So we definitely don't have 100% accuracy in this election. And I don't know that we maybe ever will in any election, but we want to get as close to 100% accuracy as possible. We're nowhere close to that in this election. The allegations are too broad, too far-reaching, and we must answer these very serious questions. And particularly when you look at how Republicans won nationwide, and yet we're to believe somehow President Trump, the same ones who voted for Republicans across the country, voted for President Trump as well. So we've got to look into all of this. And I believe at the end of the day, if it's fair, again, we will see that President Trump will prevail.
Now, Congressman, I see you're wearing your Masters gear. I want to talk about the Masters in a little bit. You know, you and I taking a break from watching the Masters, maybe on a second screen somewhere here in the studio. We'll talk about it in a second. One more thing to focus on real quickly before we talk about that a little bit more fun is how scary it is, I think, for a lot of people to watch what happened to a lot of Trump supporters again last night in Washington, D.C. And the fact that they, all day long, are peacefully assembling, protesting their government for their grievance. And their grievance is, look, we just want to make sure that we weren't disenfranchised. We want to make sure we had a free and fair election. That's all we're asking. But this is what happens. It happens time and time again. We just had a situation in Texas where you had a black police officer killed. And, you didn't see anybody rioting as a result of that. But here you have more violence in our nation's capital, just like what we saw after the Republican National Convention. Where does this stop?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that groups like Antifa, BLM, some of these organizations, they really should be considered terrorist organizations. Unfortunately, they have become the manifestation of the Democratic Party in Washington, D.C. They are bullies. They are anti-American. They do not want and will not tolerate any viewpoint other than their own. If there is any disagreement with their worldview and their perspective, they attack. And that is not who we are as Americans, but that is more and more what we are becoming accustomed to under the leadership of the current Democratic Party, which continues to refuse to say anything about this type of violence. And we have got to come back to the point that differences of opinion and political views is okay. And we accept that. We agree to disagree as Americans and we move forward. But unfortunately, that is not the current climate that this existing Democratic Party has created, and they continue to add fuel to the fire, so to speak, to these terrorist type organizations.
Yeah, you didn't see a lot of coverage of this last night or this morning on the main networks. It's hard for a guy like Joe Biden to condemn it when he's probably not paying attention to this type of stuff. Congressman, great to see you as always. And before we go real quick, what is your favorite part about the Masters? Is it the pimento cheese sandwiches? Is it the tradition? What is it, Congressman?
It's everything about the Masters is special. I've been able to go many, many times, and there is absolutely no experience in the world. If you're a golf fan, even if you're just a sports fan, there's nothing like the Masters. And I'm glad that it's moving forward. And, I hope pulling for Dustin Johnson, but we'll see how that goes. But the Masters, from the sandwiches to the parking to the immaculate course itself, it is absolutely spectacular. Everybody ought to get a taste of it at least once in their lifetime.
That's right. And everybody can watch it when this program is over at 4 p.m. All right. Until then, we're going to focus on the news. Congressman, great to see you as always. Thanks so much for your time. We'll talk soon.
Newsmax TV is now America's fastest growing cable news channel. We give you the real news you need. So subscribe to our YouTube channel and give us a thumbs up. If you like this video, share it with your friends. Newsmax TV streams live on YouTube for free. Newsmax TV, real news for real people.